Hey there, my dear listeners. Welcome back to another story that will deeply move your hearts. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about a young woman, just 21 years old, who, on a stormy night, found something that would change her life forever. Something that would make her discover a love so powerful she didn't even know it existed within her. You'll meet Eliza, a pure, orphaned girl who lived a simple life, until the day fate placed into her hands the responsibility of saving an innocent life. And when a billionaire man discovered what she had done, well, let's just say the tears he shed in that moment revealed a side of him no one had ever seen. But is such a love truly possible? Can a pure heart really touch the soul of someone whose heart was closed off to the world? And what happens when the past comes back to claim its price? Before we begin, I want to wholeheartedly thank each of you who is here with me, who chooses to spend this time listening to these stories that speak directly to the heart. You are the reason I do this with so much care. Tell me something. What are you doing this weekend while listening to our story? Are you relaxing on the couch and letting yourself get a little emotional? Are you doing that weekend cleaning and want something pleasant to listen to? Or maybe you're enjoying laziness, snuggled in bed with no rush to go anywhere? However you're enjoying these days off, I'm happy you chose to be here with me. Now, let's begin our story. Prepare your hearts, because what you're about to hear will show you that true love still exists in this world. A storm, a secret, and a billionaire's tears. Eliza Reed woke up that Friday with the same ache in her chest she'd felt every morning for 5 years, ever since her grandmother had passed and left her completely alone in the world. At 21, she had already faced more pain than many people encounter in a lifetime, but she still managed to find the strength to get out of bed and face another day. The alarm clock read 5:30 in the morning, and she knew she had another day of hard work ahead. Eliza was one of those people who didn't complain about life, even when life seemed to conspire against her at every turn. She slowly got up from the old mattress that lay directly on the floor of her small, one-room apartment on the outskirts of Los Angeles. The place was incredibly simple, but it was all she could afford with the money she earned working as a cleaner 3 times a week and selling savory pastries she made at home on other days. The peeling walls and cold concrete floor told the story of a life of hardship, but Eliza always kept everything meticulously clean and organized. She had learned from her grandmother that poverty was no excuse for sloppiness, and that a home could be humble, but it should always be dignified. Her routine was always the same: wake up early, take a quick shower that sometimes didn't even get warm, have a simple breakfast of bread and coffee, and head to Ms. Evelyn Stone's house, where she worked on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, cleaning an enormous mansion in the city's affluent neighborhood. Eliza didn't mind the hard work. In fact, she even enjoyed keeping things organized and clean. But what hurt her most was the way Mrs. Stone spoke to her, as if she were inferior, as if she wasn't a person just like her. As she tidied the kitchen that morning, Eliza had no idea it would be her last day in that house. She was wiping down the floor when she heard Mrs. Stone's shrill voice shouting her name from upstairs. "Eliza, come here now!" The young woman rushed upstairs, afraid she had done something wrong, and found her employer holding a pearl necklace in her hand, with a look of rage on her face that Eliza had never seen before. "Where did you put the other pearls from this necklace?" Mrs. Stone asked, with a cold voice that made Eliza's heart race with fear. "I didn't touch anything, Mrs. Stone. I just cleaned the dresser as you asked," Eliza replied, her voice trembling, not understanding what was happening. The older woman looked at her with contempt and said something that cut the young woman's heart like a knife. "I should have known I couldn't trust a girl of your kind. Eliza, you stole the missing pearls from this necklace. I'm certain of it." Eliza felt her world collapse around her. Never in her life had she stolen even a piece of candy from a child, let alone someone's jewelry. "I didn't steal anything, Mrs. Stone. I swear to God I didn't take anything from you," she said, with tears in her eyes. But her employer had already decided she was guilty. "It's no use lying. You're fired, and I won't pay you for today. I'm taking pity on you by not calling the police." Eliza gathered her few belongings and left that house heartbroken, not by the loss of her job, but by being accused of something so terrible. The walk home seemed longer than ever. Eliza walked through the crowded streets, but felt completely invisible, as if she were a ghost wandering through the world. She had always been a very religious girl, had learned from her grandmother to trust in God, even in the most difficult times. But that day, it was hard to understand why bad things happened to good people. When she got home, she threw herself on the bed and cried as she hadn't cried in a long time, not only for the injustice she had suffered, but for feeling so alone in the world. Eliza had lost her parents when she was just 16, in a car accident that changed her entire life overnight. She was an only child and went to live with her maternal grandmother, Grandma Rose, a woman of faith who worked as a nanny for wealthy children and raised her granddaughter with much love and many lessons about character and dignity. Her grandmother always said that true beauty came from within, that the most important thing in life was to have a pure heart, and that God had special plans for good people. When Grandma Rose died 3 years later, a victim of cancer discovered too late, Eliza found herself alone in the world at 19, without family, without money, and without prospects for the future. The only thing her grandmother had left her was that small apartment, which was paid off, and an unshakable faith that everything would work out in the end. Eliza had never dated, never been kissed, never had any kind of intimate experience with any man. It wasn't for lack of opportunity, because she was a very beautiful young woman, with straight brown hair, honey-colored eyes, and a sweet smile that lit up any room. The problem was that Eliza was very afraid of giving herself to someone and being abandoned, as she had been so many times in her life. She protected her heart and her body as if they were treasures, waiting to find someone who truly deserved the pure love she had to offer. Her grandmother always said that virginity was a gift a woman should only give to the man of her life, and Eliza took that advice very seriously. She dreamed of getting married in church, having children, and building the family she always longed for. That Friday afternoon, after crying a lot, Eliza got up and decided she wasn't going to sit idly by feeling sorry for herself. She had some ingredients at home and decided to make a batch of savory pastries to sell over the weekend in the neighborhood park. That's how she supplemented her income when money was tight. And now that she had lost her job, she needed to chase after any source of money that appeared. While making the dough and preparing the filling, she talked to God, asking for strength to overcome this new difficulty, and trusting that He had something better reserved for her. The night arrived with a sky heavy with dark clouds that promised rain, and Eliza was finishing packing the pastries when she began to hear the first thunderclaps. She looked out the window and saw that the weather was really bad, with strong wind swaying the trees and lightning cutting across the sky. At least tomorrow, there won't be any movement in the park, she thought, knowing that rain always kept customers away. But Eliza had no idea that the approaching storm would bring something into her life that would change everything forever, something that would make her discover a love greater than anything she had ever felt. Eliza's world has been turned upside down, but she's still holding on to faith. Do you think her act of making pastries is a sign of resilience or desperation? What do you predict the approaching storm will bring into her life? Share your thoughts in the comments. The rain began to fall around 8 in the evening, first slowly, as if the sky was testing the strength of the raindrops. But then it came with a violence Eliza had never seen before. The wind rattled the apartment windows, and the thunder was so loud it sounded like it was exploding right on top of the building. She was sitting on the bed, mending a hole in the only pair of jeans she had when the power went out completely, leaving everything in total darkness. "My goodness, what a storm," Eliza murmured, fumbling blindly for her cell phone to use the flashlight. The battery was almost dead, but it allowed her to find a candle she kept for emergencies. The faint candlelight cast strange shadows on the walls, and the sound of the rain beating on the roof was so strong it seemed as if water would break through and flood the apartment. Eliza covered herself with a thin blanket and stayed there, waiting for the storm to pass and asking God to protect everyone who was out on the streets at that moment. Around 10 at night, when the rain was easing a bit, Eliza heard a different noise coming from outside. It sounded like someone rummaging through the building's trash, and she thought it might be a homeless person looking for food or shelter. She always had a soft spot for people in vulnerable situations, and even thought about going down to offer the pastries she had made. But with all that rain and no power in the building, it was too dangerous to go out. It was then that she heard something that made her heart pound in her chest. A faint cry, almost a whimper, coming from under her window. It wasn't the cry of an adult or an older child. It was a very specific sound that she recognized immediately, even though she had never been around babies. "My God, there's a baby down there," she said to herself, jumping up from the bed and running to the window. The rain was still falling, but it was lighter, and she could hear the crying more clearly. Eliza didn't think twice. She grabbed her cell phone's flashlight, even with the battery almost dead, threw a jacket over her clothes, and ran down the building's stairs. The front gate was slightly open because of the wind, and she went straight out to the sidewalk where the residents' trash bins were located. The crying was coming from behind the large dumpster, and when she shined her phone light, she almost fainted at what she saw. Inside a cardboard box soaked by the rain was a newborn baby, so tiny it fit in the palm of her hand, completely wet and shivering from cold. The tiny creature was wrapped in a dirty, torn towel, and the umbilical cord was still attached, but it had been cut haphazardly, all ragged and unclean. The baby cried with such a faint voice that hardly any sound came out, and Eliza saw that his skin was very pale, almost bluish, clear signs of hypothermia. "My God! My God! Who would do such a thing?" Eliza said, tears streaming down her face, picking up the baby with all the care in the world. The little child was so light he seemed like an injured bird, and she could feel his tiny bones through his thin skin. "Calm down, my love. Auntie is here now. Nothing will happen to you," she whispered, even knowing that the baby was in a very serious condition. Eliza ran back up to her apartment, the baby clutched to her chest, trying to transfer her own body heat to that tiny creature that was almost dying of cold. When she got home, the first thing she did was take off the baby's wet clothes and saw that it was a baby boy. She took one of her own t-shirts, which was dry and clean, and wrapped him with all the affection she could. "I need to take you to the hospital," she said, but then immediately remembered she didn't even have money for bus fare, let alone to pay for medical treatment. The nearest public hospital was far away, and with all that rain and no buses running, it would be impossible to get there. "What do I do, my God? Please help me," she pleaded, looking at the baby who had stopped crying, but was breathing very faintly. Eliza remembered some things she had seen in movies and television shows about first aid. She heated water in a pot, put it in a plastic bottle, and wrapped it in a towel to make an improvised hot water bottle. Then she put the baby on her chest, skin to skin, and covered herself with all the blankets she had at home. "Be quiet, my love. Auntie will take care of you," she repeated like a prayer, stroking the baby's bald head. The baby was perfect, even in that state. He had tiny fingers, transparent nails, and when he opened his little eyes, Eliza saw they were very light, almost blue. "You're an angel. Did you know that?" "An angel God sent to me," she said, feeling an immediate connection with that little creature who had arrived in her life so unexpectedly. Throughout the night, Eliza didn't sleep a wink. She stayed awake, watching the baby's breathing, checking if he was warming up, cleaning the umbilical cord with warm water, and doing everything she could to keep him alive. Around 5 in the morning, as the day was starting to lighten, the baby began to cry again. But this time, it was a stronger cry, more like that of a healthy child. "Oh my God, you're hungry, aren't you, my love?" Eliza said, realizing the baby was making mouth movements as if looking for something to suckle. She knew newborns needed to feed every few hours, but she had no milk or formula at home. "What am I going to do? How am I going to feed you?" It was then that something happened that Eliza would never be able to fully explain for the rest of her life. She was holding the baby, and he was crying from hunger, when she felt a strange sensation in her chest, as if her body was responding to the child's cry. Without fully understanding what was happening, she opened her blouse and put the baby to her breast, more by instinct than by any knowledge she possessed. To her surprise, after a few minutes, the baby began to nurse. Eliza couldn't believe what was happening, because she was a virgin, had never been pregnant, never had a child. But there she was, breastfeeding a baby, as if she were the most natural mother in the world. "This can only be a miracle," she whispered, tears of emotion streaming down her face. The baby nursed for about 15 minutes and then fell asleep in her arms, with quiet breathing and a rosy little face, very different from the deathly pallor he had when she found him. Eliza looked at that tiny creature sleeping and felt an explosion of love in her heart she had never felt before. It was as if her maternal instinct had awakened all at once, as if she had been born to be that baby's mother. "I don't know who you are, my prince, or who abandoned you like this, but as long as I live, you will not suffer want. I will take care of you as if you were my own son," she promised, kissing his forehead with infinite tenderness. In that moment, Eliza had no idea that she was making a promise that would completely change the course of her life, and that this baby who had arrived on a stormy night would be the key to a love she didn't even imagine could exist. Eliza's miraculous ability to nurse a baby is truly extraordinary. What do you think this supernatural connection signifies? And what challenges do you foresee for Eliza as she takes on the role of a single mother to Leo? Share your thoughts in the comments. The next 3 months were the most intense and transformative of Eliza's life. She named the baby Leo because she believed he had been sent by God as an angel to change her life. The boy grew healthy and strong in her arms, and with each passing day, the love between them grew deeper and truer. Eliza had become a mother overnight, and it seemed she was born for it. The miracle of breastfeeding continued to happen every day, even though she was a virgin and had never gone through a pregnancy. Eliza's body responded to the baby's needs as if she were his biological mother. She researched online and discovered that there were rare cases of women who could breastfeed through hormonal stimulation caused by contact with a baby. But for her, it was much more than science. It was a clear sign that God had brought her and Leo together for a special purpose. Their routine was intense, but full of joy. Leo woke up every 3 hours to nurse, and Eliza never complained about losing sleep, because every moment with him was a gift. She talked to the baby all the time, told stories, sang lullabies her grandmother used to sing to her, and Leo always paid attention with those clear little eyes that seemed to understand every word. "You're my prince. Did you know that, Leo? You came into Mommy's life as a gift from heaven," she would say, as she changed his diaper or bathed him in the small basin she had bought. Leo always smiled when he heard her voice, and Eliza was sure he knew she wasn't his blood mother, but his mother by heart, which was much more important. Money was a constant problem. Eliza had sold almost all her belongings to buy diapers, ointments, clothes, and other items Leo needed. She sold the only ring she had inherited from her grandmother. She sold the small television, even some furniture from the apartment. What mattered was that Leo had everything a baby needed to grow up healthy and happy. During the day, when Leo slept, Eliza would make savory pastries to sell in the neighborhood park. She carried the baby in her arms, or in an improvised fabric sling she had made, and customers always melted seeing the two together. "What a beautiful baby! He looks so much like you," people would comment, and Eliza would smile without correcting them, because in her heart, Leo really was her son. "Ms. Eliza, what a sweet baby. He's just like you when he smiles," Ms. Clara, a customer who always bought savory pastries, would say. "Thank you, Ms. Clara. He's the joy of my life," Eliza would reply, feeling her chest swell with maternal pride. Leo was always clean, fresh-smelling, and well-dressed, even if his clothes were simple. Eliza made sure he was always impeccable. The neighbors in the building had divided opinions about Eliza's situation. Some, like Mrs. Henderson, who lived on the second floor, helped when they could, bringing clothes their grandchildren had outgrown or offering to watch Leo when Eliza needed to go out. "That girl is an angel, raising that baby alone and with so much love," Mrs. Henderson would always comment. But other neighbors whispered in corners, inventing stories about who Leo's father might be. "That girl always seemed like a saint, but look, she showed up with a baby out of nowhere," grumbled Mrs. Williams, who liked to gossip about other people's lives. "She must have gotten pregnant in secret and now wants to play the victim." Eliza heard the malicious comments but didn't care. What people thought didn't change the love she felt for Leo. The baby grew fast and healthy. At 1 month, he was already tracking objects with his gaze and smiling when he saw Eliza approach. At 2 months, he began making sweet cooing sounds, as if trying to talk to her. And when he turned 3 months old, Leo could already hold up his head and would giggle when Eliza tickled him or played peekaboo. "You're growing so fast, my love. Soon, you'll be crawling around and giving Mommy a hard time," Eliza would say, watching Leo play with a rattle he had received from Mrs. Henderson. The boy was a happy and healthy child, always smiling and rarely crying. It seemed he knew he had found a mother who loved him more than anything in the world. Eliza had developed a care routine that worked perfectly. She woke up early, bathed Leo, nursed him, put him down for naps, and used the time to make her savory pastries. In the afternoon, when Leo woke up, she would play with him and give him another bath if necessary, and then go to the park to sell her treats with the baby in her arms. People always stopped to talk and admire Leo, and many bought pastries just to spend more time near the baby. "This boy will be a heartthrob when he grows up, huh, Eliza? Look at those clear eyes, that little smile," commented Mr. Peterson, who worked as a doorman in a nearby building and always bought pastries from her. "I hope he's a good man, Mr. Peterson. That's what matters most," Eliza would reply, always thinking about Leo's future and how she would raise him to be a person of integrity. At night, after Leo had nursed and was sleeping peacefully, Eliza would watch him in his improvised crib, which she had made from a drawer lined with soft blankets. She used these moments to talk to God, thanking him for having given her such a wonderful son, and asking for wisdom to raise him in the best possible way. "Thank you, my God, for putting Leo in my life. I don't know what I did to deserve such a special gift, but I promise I will take care of him with all the love I have in my heart." She prayed every night, kissing the baby's forehead, who slept like an angel. Eliza never tired of admiring every detail of Leo. His tiny hands that clutched her finger, his chubby feet she kissed all the time, the lovely baby smell he had after his bath. She knew every birthmark, every crease, every expression he made. Leo was completely hers, and she was completely his. But Eliza had no idea that, somewhere else in the city, a desperate man was looking precisely for Leo, moving heaven and earth to find the son who had been stolen from him, and that, very soon, the perfect world she had built with Leo would be shaken by a truth that would change everything forever. Eliza and Leo have built a beautiful, loving world together, despite their humble circumstances. Do you believe their peace will be easily shattered when Leo's biological father enters the picture? What kind of man do you imagine he will be? Share your thoughts in the comments. William Thorne hadn't slept properly for 3 months. The man who had once been considered one of Los Angeles's most successful businessmen, owner of one of the country's largest construction companies, now spent his days and nights in a desperate search for the son who had vanished from his life as if he had never existed. At 35, William had achieved everything a man could dream of in material terms, but he discovered that none of it mattered when you lose the most important person in your life. William's marriage to Catherine had been a mistake from the beginning, but he only realized it too late. They met at a graduation party at the architecture school where she studied, and at the time it seemed they had everything in common. Catherine was beautiful, intelligent, came from a wealthy family like his, and everyone thought they were the perfect couple. But what William didn't know was that behind that facade of a sophisticated woman, Catherine hid a chemical dependency that would destroy everything they built together. The first years of marriage were even reasonable. William was focused on expanding the family business, and Catherine seemed content with the luxurious life he provided. They lived in a mansion in the city's most exclusive neighborhood, traveled the world, attended high society parties, and on the outside, seemed to have a perfect life. But inside the house, things were very different. Catherine had changed after the wedding, becoming cold, distant, and William felt he was married to a stranger. It was only when Catherine became pregnant, 5 years into their marriage, that William discovered the truth about his wife. She had started using drugs in college, first only on weekends. Then it became an addiction that she managed to hide very well. During pregnancy, she promised she would stop, and William believed her because he desperately wanted to be a father. He had grown up without his mother, who died when he was 15, and dreamed of giving his child the love and presence he had missed in his own childhood. "William, I promise I'll be an exemplary mother. Our son will have everything life can offer," Catherine would say, stroking her already large belly. And William believed because he needed to believe. He had already chosen the name, Leo, had already decorated the baby's room, had already made all the plans to be the father he never had. When Leo was born, William fell madly in love with his son. The baby was perfect, with clear eyes just like his, and an angelic face that melted anyone's heart. "My son, you are the most precious thing that has ever happened in Daddy's life," he would say, holding Leo in his arms and feeling a happiness he had never experienced before. But the joy was short-lived. In the first few days after the birth, Catherine was strange, nervous, and William thought it was the baby blues that many women experience. He hired the best nannies, the best doctors, did everything to ensure Catherine and Leo had the best possible care. But one morning, when Leo was just 2 days old, William woke up and found the house empty. Catherine had fled with the baby and left only a note. "I can't live this lie anymore. Don't look for me." The despair William felt at that moment was something he couldn't explain to anyone. It was as if a piece of his soul had been ripped out. "My son! Where is my son?" he would shout through the empty house, calling all of Catherine's acquaintances, her family, anyone who might have any information. But no one knew anything. Or if they did, they wouldn't talk. William hired the best private detectives in the country, placed advertisements in newspapers, offered $1 million reward for anyone who brought information about Leo's whereabouts. He used all the resources he had, all his contacts, all the influence he possessed. But it was as if Catherine and the baby had vanished from the face of the earth. "Mr. Thorne, we found some clues about where your ex-wife has been, but we always arrive a day too late," explained Detective Miller, the private investigator he had hired. "She's hiding very well, and from what we've managed to find out, she's using heavy drugs. This makes the investigation very difficult, because this type of person acts unpredictably." Nights were the worst for William. He would stay awake in the room he had prepared for Leo, looking at the empty crib, the clothes that were never worn, the toys that were never touched. "Where are you, my son? Daddy is looking for you. Don't give up on me," he would talk to himself, tears streaming down the face of a man who had learned since childhood that men don't cry. Work had become a torture. William tried to concentrate in meetings, on important company decisions, but his mind was always on Leo. He had lost 30 pounds, couldn't eat properly, couldn't concentrate on anything but finding his son. The company's employees were worried because they had never seen their boss in that state. "William, you need to take care of your health. Leo needs a strong father when you reunite," said Sarah, his secretary, who had worked with him for over 10 years and had witnessed all his anguish. "I know, Sarah, but it's stronger than me. I can't think of anything else but my son," he would reply, running his hand over his tired face. After 2 months of fruitless searching, Detective Miller brought information that made William's heart race. "Sir, we managed to track your ex-wife. She was in a downtown LA impoverished area known for drug activity, but by the time we got there, she had already left. But one of the people we spoke to said she had a baby a few weeks ago. But then she appeared alone. We're investigating what happened." "What do you mean, appeared alone? Where is my son?" William asked desperately, grabbing the detective's arm. "We don't know yet, sir, but we're following all leads. She may have left the child with someone or—" Detective Miller didn't finish the sentence, but William understood what he was implying and felt his world collapse again. It was then that Detective Miller got crucial information. "Mr. Thorne, we found out your ex-wife was last seen in the East Los Angeles area, near a housing project. We're going to focus our search in that area. If Leo is alive, we'll find him." William felt a mix of hope and terror, because he didn't know in what condition he would find his son, or if he would find him at all. William's search for his son is heartbreaking. Do you think he's prepared for the truth about how Leo was found and the condition he was in? What emotions do you think will consume him when he finally sees his son? Share your thoughts in the comments. William had been walking through the streets of the Los Angeles outskirts for 2 hours, accompanied by Detective Miller, when he saw something that made his heart nearly stop beating. In the small playground of a simple park, a young woman was sitting on a bench with a baby in her arms, softly singing a lullaby. Even from a distance, even after 3 months of despair and sleepless nights, William instantly recognized the light hair and the little face he saw in his dreams every night. "It's him, detective! It's my son!" William said, his voice choked, grabbing the detective's arm. "Are you sure, sir? The distance might be deceiving," Detective Miller replied. But William was already walking towards the bench, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from his chest. He knew every detail of his son, every birthmark, every expression, and had no doubt whatsoever that this was Leo. Eliza was enjoying the sunny afternoon by taking Leo to the playground. The boy was already 3 months old and loved being outdoors, watching the trees and listening to the birds. She was singing "Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star" when she saw a man approaching, dressed in an expensive suit that completely clashed with the simple environment. The man was tall, had dark hair and clear eyes just like Leo's, and walked with an expression of someone who had seen a ghost. "Excuse me," William said as he approached the bench, trying to control the emotion in his voice. "May I speak with you for a moment?" Eliza looked at him strangely, instinctively pulling Leo closer to her chest. There was something in the way that man looked at the baby that made her alert. "What do you want to talk about, sir?" she asked, already thinking of getting up and leaving. "It's about that baby in your arms," William said, feeling his voice tremble. "I need to know. How did he come to you?" Eliza felt her blood run cold. It was the question she had always been afraid to hear, but knew that one day someone would ask. "Why do you want to know? Who are you?" she asked, getting up from the bench and stepping back a few paces. "My name is William Thorne, and I have reason to believe that baby is my son, Leo, who was abducted from my home 3 months ago," he said, taking a photo from his phone and showing it to Eliza. It was a photo of a newborn who looked exactly like Leo, without a shadow of a doubt. Eliza looked at the photo and then at Leo, and even wanting to deny it, she couldn't ignore the resemblance. "This can't be happening," Eliza murmured, feeling her legs go weak. "I found him abandoned in the trash, almost dead. I've taken care of him for 3 months, as if he were my son." "He is my son," she said with tears in her eyes, kissing Leo's forehead, who started to cry as if sensing the tension of the moment. William saw the desperation in that young woman's voice and felt his heart break into pieces. He could see that she truly loved Leo, that she had cared for him with love and dedication. The baby was clearly healthy, well cared for, and it was obvious that he had been treated like a prince. "I don't want to take him from you," William said, his voice breaking. "I just want to understand what happened. Can you tell me how you found him?" Eliza was trembling, but something in that man's voice made her trust him. Between sobs, she told the whole story. The stormy night, the baby in the dumpster, the terrible condition he was in, how she cared for him and managed to breastfeed him even though she was a virgin. "I saved his life," she finished, looking at William with a mixture of defiance and plea. "If I hadn't found him that night, he would have died." William listened to every word, his heart shattered. His ex-wife hadn't just abandoned Leo. She had literally thrown the baby in the trash to die. And that young woman, whom he didn't even know, had saved his son's life and cared for him with love for 3 months. "What's your name?" he asked, wiping the tears that streamed down his face uncontrollably. "Eliza. Eliza Reed," she replied, still holding Leo firmly. "And you may be his biological father, but I am his mother by heart. I'm the one who woke up with him in the middle of the night. I'm the one who cared for him when he was sick. I'm the one who taught him to smile. You can't just show up and take my son away," she said with a courage she didn't know she had. "I don't want to take him from you, Eliza," William said, and for the first time since he had lost Leo, he felt a glimmer of hope in his heart. "You saved my son. You did what I couldn't do, which was to protect him. You are an angel God placed in his life." He paused, looking at Leo, who had stopped crying and was looking at him with curiosity. "Can we talk? Go somewhere more private." Eliza hesitated, but something about that man made her trust him. Perhaps it was the affectionate way he looked at Leo, or the sincere tears he couldn't hide. "We can go to my apartment," she said finally. "But I'm not separating from him. No matter what you say, Leo stays with me." The walk to Eliza's apartment was made in silence, with Leo sleeping peacefully in her arms, oblivious to the drama unfolding around him. William walked beside her, observing every move of the young woman, seeing how she protected the baby, how she talked softly to him, how she knew every need he had. It was obvious that she had become Leo's mother in every sense. When they arrived at the small apartment, William was shocked by the simplicity of the place, but also by the cleanliness and care with which everything was organized. There was a special corner for Leo, with an improvised crib, washed and ironed clothes, simple but clean toys. "How did you do all this with what money?" he asked, knowing that the young woman clearly had no resources. "I sold everything I had to take care of him," Eliza replied with pride. "I sold my grandmother's ring, the television. I even sold some furniture from the apartment. Leo never wanted for anything with me." William looked around again and realized that there was indeed almost nothing in the apartment besides the essentials for the baby. That young woman had sacrificed everything for Leo. "Eliza," William said, kneeling on the floor in front of her, who was sitting on the bed with Leo in her arms. "I beg you, I implore you, don't take my son from me. I know you don't owe me anything. I know you saved him when I failed, but please let me be part of his life. Let me take care of both of you." And it was at that moment, seeing a billionaire man on his knees begging for something he couldn't buy with money, that Eliza understood that her life would never be the same again. William is humbled, and Eliza has shown incredible strength. What do you think will be William's next move to ensure he's part of Leo's life, while also honoring Eliza's role? And how do you think Eliza will react to his vulnerability? Share your thoughts in the comments. William remained on his knees for a few minutes, tears streaming down his face, while Eliza watched him in silence. She had never seen a man cry like that, with so much despair, and at the same time so much hope. Leo was awake in her arms, looking at William with those clear, curious eyes, as if trying to understand who this man was, who made his adoptive mother tense. "Get up, please," Eliza said finally, extending a hand to help him. "You don't need to kneel to me. I understand you're his father, and that you must be suffering a lot." William got up, took a handkerchief from his pocket, and tried to compose himself. But it was hard to stop looking at Leo, who was so much bigger and more alert than when he had disappeared from his life. "I need to know more about you, Eliza," William said, sitting on a simple chair she offered. "It's not suspicion, I need to understand how God put you in my son's life. Do you have family? How did you learn to take care of a baby so well?" The affectionate way he spoke made Eliza relax a little and decide to tell her story. "I'm an orphan," she began, adjusting Leo in her arms. "My parents died when I was 16, and I went to live with my grandmother. She raised me until I was 19, when she also died of cancer. Since then, I've lived alone, working as a cleaner and making pastries to sell." William listened to every word carefully, impressed by the maturity of that young woman who had faced so many losses. "What was your grandmother's name?" William asked. For some reason he himself didn't understand. "Grandma Rose. She worked as a nanny for wealthy children here in Los Angeles. She always said she had cared for very important families," Eliza replied with affection in her voice. "My mother's name was Mary Reed, and she was also a nanny before she married my father." When William heard the name Mary Reed, he felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. He turned pale, got up from the chair, and began pacing the small apartment, with an expression of someone who had seen a ghost. "It can't be," he murmured, running his hands through his hair. "It can't be a coincidence." "What is it? Did you know my mother?" Eliza asked, feeling her heart race. She barely remembered her mother, who had died when she was very young, and always wanted to know more about her. "William, tell me what you know about my mother," she insisted, seeing that he was visibly shaken. William stopped pacing and looked at Eliza with an expression of total disbelief. Mary Reed was my nanny from age 8 to 15. She took care of me after my mother died, and she was the most important person in my childhood. The words came out slowly, as if he couldn't believe what he was saying. She practically raised me. She was like a second mother to me. Eliza was speechless. She put Leo in the improvised crib and stood up, looking at William as if she were seeing a ghost. This can't be happening. It can't be a coincidence that you're Leo's father and knew my mother, she said, feeling her legs go weak. Tell me what she was like. I want to know everything. Mary was an incredible woman, William began, his voice choked with emotion. She came into our house when I was shattered by my mother's death. I was a rebellious boy. I didn't want anyone to touch me, didn't talk to anyone. But she had infinite patience with me. He paused, looking at Leo, who had fallen back asleep. She taught me to read, told me stories, made the most delicious cakes in the world. My grandmother always said my mother was special with children, Eliza said, sitting down again and wiping the tears that began to flow. She said my mother had a gift for caring for others, that she knew exactly what each child needed. Leo stirred in the crib and made a little sound, and the two adults looked at him tenderly. When I turned 15, my father decided I didn't need a nanny anymore, William continued. It was the saddest day of my adolescence. Mary cried, I cried, but my father said it was time for me to become a man. He looked at Eliza with a sad expression. She gave me a tight hug, told me she would always be rooting for me, and left. I never saw her again. She died when I was 5, Eliza explained. My grandmother told me she always talked about a special boy she had cared for, a wealthy boy who had lost his mother, and whom she loved as if he were her son. She never told me his name, but she always said that one day he would be a very important man. She looked at William in awe. It was you. She was talking about you. William sat down again, this time closer to Eliza, and took her hands in his. I searched for Mary for years. When I graduated, when I opened my company, when I got married, I always wanted to find her to thank her for everything she did for me. I hired detectives, looked everywhere, but I could never find her. His voice was broken with emotion, and now I find out that her daughter saved my son. God has strange plans, doesn't he? Eliza said, feeling a connection with William that went beyond the situation with Leo. My mother took care of you when you were a child, and now I'm taking care of your son. It's as if everything had been planned from the beginning. Leo woke up and started crying softly, and she automatically picked him up. Can I hold him? William asked timidly, extending his arms. Eliza hesitated for a second, but then handed Leo to him. And it was touching to see how the baby calmed down in his biological father's arms. Hi, my son. Daddy missed you so much, William whispered, kissing Leo's forehead. You've grown so much. You're so handsome. He's a very good child, Eliza said, observing the interaction between father and son. He hardly cries, sleeps through the night, loves baths, and he's very smart. He already recognizes my voice from far away. She paused, seeing how William looked at Leo with pure love. I know you're his father, and I know you have a right to be with him, but I can't imagine my life without Leo. And I can't imagine taking Leo from you, William replied, looking at her over the baby's head. You're not just the person who saved my son. You're the daughter of the woman who saved me when I was a child. This can't be a coincidence, Eliza. This is destiny. Leo was looking at the two adults as if he understood that his life was being decided at that moment. What are we going to do? Eliza asked, feeling a mixture of fear and hope. How are we going to resolve this situation? William looked at her, then at Leo, and felt that he had found not only his son, but also the person who would complete the family he had always dreamed of having. Mary Reed's daughter had appeared in his life like a gift from destiny, and he wasn't going to let this opportunity slip away. The revelation of the deep connection between William and Eliza is truly remarkable. Do you believe they are destined to be together beyond just co-parenting Leo? What kind of proposal do you think William will make to keep Eliza and Leo together? Share your thoughts below. William stayed awake all night, thinking about the conversation he had with Eliza and the incredible discovery about their connection through Mary Reed. He had returned to the empty mansion, his heart divided between the joy of having found Leo and the fear that a legal battle could further traumatize the child. The next morning, he called Eliza and asked to meet again because he had a proposal that could resolve everyone's situation. "I've thought of a solution," William said as soon as he arrived at Eliza's apartment. She was bathing Leo in a small basin, and the baby was smiling and splashing his tiny hands in the water, completely at ease. "But before I say anything, I want you to know that I completely respect the love you have for Leo, and that I would never do anything to hurt either of you." Eliza finished bathing the baby, wrapped him in a soft towel, and held him in her arms before responding. "Go on then, I'm listening," she said, trying to control the nervousness she felt whenever she thought about the possibility of losing Leo. The night had also been difficult for her, full of nightmares where men in suits appeared to take her son away. "I want to propose a marriage," William said all at once, without beating around the bush. "A marriage between the two of us, so that Leo can have a complete family with both a father and mother." Eliza almost dropped Leo from her arms, so great was her surprise. "Are you crazy? We don't even know each other properly," she exclaimed, getting up from the bed and starting to pace the apartment. "I know it sounds crazy," William said, trying to remain calm. "But think about it. Leo needs stability. He needs to grow up in an environment where he knows his parents respect each other and work together for his well-being. I can offer financial security for both of you, and you can continue to be the mother he knows and loves." He paused, watching her automatically rock Leo in her arms. "It would be a marriage of convenience, at least in the beginning." "Marriage of convenience?" "William, I'm 21 years old, and I've never even properly dated. I can't just marry a stranger, even if it's for Leo," Eliza said, feeling her heart race. "Besides, I'm a virgin. I've never been with any man. How do you expect me to just marry like this?" William felt his heart clench when she mentioned she was a virgin. There was something about her purity and honesty that touched him deeply, that made him want to protect her from all the bad things in the world. "I would completely respect your boundaries," he said sincerely. "It would just be a piece of paper, a way to ensure Leo has legal and emotional security. We would live in the same house, but you would have your own space, your privacy." "And what would I gain from that?" Eliza asked, not out of greed, but because she needed to understand all aspects of the proposal. "Leo would have everything a child could dream of: education, health, opportunities. You would never have to worry about money again. You could dedicate yourself entirely to taking care of him," William explained. "Besides, you would be legally protected. No one could question your right to be Leo's mother." Leo began to cry softly, and Eliza automatically started humming a song to calm him. William watched the scene and felt a pang of emotion seeing how natural she was in the role of a mother. "You truly love Leo, it's obvious," he said softly. "And I know he loves you too. It would be cruel to separate you two now. But what if it goes wrong? What if we can't live together? What if you meet someone else and want to get married for real?" Eliza asked, full of doubts and fears. Leo had calmed down and was looking at William with those clear eyes, as if he were studying the father he didn't know. "We would put everything on paper," William replied. "Your rights would be guaranteed, and so would Leo's. But I believe we can make this work." "Why are you so sure?" she asked, curious to understand his confidence. "Because you are Mary Reed's daughter," William said with simplicity. "She taught me to recognize people of character, people you can trust. And I see her in you, in the way you care for Leo, in the way you gave up everything for him." He approached her and delicately touched Leo's little face. Besides, Mary always said that God brings the right people together at the right time. Eliza felt tears in her eyes. There was something about William's proposal that made sense, even though it was completely crazy. Leo needed stability, and she knew that alone she wouldn't be able to give him everything a child deserved. "And where would we live?" she asked, beginning to seriously consider the possibility. "In my house. It's a large mansion. You would have your own room. Leo would have a beautiful room that I had already prepared for him," William explained, feeling a glimmer of hope, seeing that she was thinking about the proposal. "You could decorate it however you wanted, make changes. It would be your home too." He paused. "And you would never have to worry again about whether Leo will have diapers, medicine, or anything he needs." "I need to think," Eliza said finally, looking at Leo who had fallen asleep in her arms. "This is a very important decision that will affect the rest of all our lives. I can't decide like this overnight." William nodded, fully understanding her need to reflect. "Of course you're right, but while you're thinking, let me take care of you too," he asked. "Can I send someone to bring diapers, food, anything you need? You shouldn't be worried about money right now." Eliza looked around the almost empty apartment and felt gratitude for the offer, but also wounded pride. "I've always managed to take care of Leo alone," she said with dignity. "It might not be luxury, but he never wanted for anything with me." William saw that he had touched a nerve and quickly corrected himself. "I know that, and I greatly admire your strength and determination. I just want to help because you are important to me now." Eliza spent the rest of the day thinking about William's proposal. On one hand, the idea of marrying a stranger terrified her. On the other hand, she knew Leo deserved to have his father in his life. And that alone, she would never be able to give him the opportunities William could offer. When Leo woke up from his afternoon nap and smiled at her with that toothless grin that melted her heart, she knew what the answer was. "I accept," she said. When William called in the late afternoon, "But on one condition. If at any point this isn't working for Leo, for his emotional well-being, we revisit the agreement." On the other end of the line, William felt a mix of relief and nervousness because he knew he was about to start a new life with a woman he barely knew, but whom he already respected deeply. Eliza has accepted William's proposal for a marriage of convenience. What do you think will be the biggest challenges for them as they navigate living together? Do you believe a true love can grow from such an unconventional arrangement? Share your thoughts in the comments. The move to William's mansion was like entering a completely different world for Eliza. The house was 10 times larger than anywhere she had ever lived, with enormous rooms, bathrooms that looked like spas, and a kitchen bigger than her entire apartment. William made sure to show her Leo's room, which he had decorated with so much care before the baby was born. And Eliza almost cried seeing that perfect environment, prepared by a father who loved his son even before he truly knew him. "This is the room I prepared for him," William said, opening the door to a room painted in soft shades of blue and white, with a beautiful wooden crib, a comfortable armchair for nursing, and shelves full of children's books and educational toys. "You can change anything you want, just say the word." Leo was sleeping in Eliza's arms, but when she placed him in the new crib, he snuggled into the soft sheets as if he had always slept there. "It's perfect," Eliza said, running her hand along the side of the crib and imagining all the nights Leo would spend there growing up. "Did you do all this yourself?" William nodded, a little embarrassed. "I spent hours here when Catherine was pregnant, imagining what it would be like when Leo was born. I never thought he would arrive here the way he did, but the important thing is that he arrived." The civil wedding happened a week later in a simple ceremony at the courthouse, with just 2 witnesses William called from the office. Eliza wore a simple white dress she had bought herself, and William wore an elegant dark suit. When the judge asked if she accepted William as her husband, Eliza looked at Leo, who was sleeping in his stroller beside her, and replied, "I do," thinking of her son's future, not the romance that didn't exist between them. The first few days of living together were strange and full of adjustments. Eliza woke up in the middle of the night when Leo cried, and William always appeared at the bedroom door minutes later, asking if she needed anything. "You don't need to wake up every time," she would say, a little embarrassed to be breastfeeding in front of him. "I want to help. I lost the first 3 months of my son's life. I don't want to lose anything more," he would reply, sitting in a chair and just watching the beautiful connection between her and Leo. William had hired a housekeeper to take care of the house and a cook to prepare meals, but Eliza insisted on personally taking care of everything that had to do with Leo. She prepared his bottles when he started taking formula, washed his clothes, bathed him, changed his diapers. "You can relax a bit, Eliza. There are people here to help," William would say, but she would shake her head. "I like taking care of him. That's how it's always been, and that's how I feel useful," she would explain, folding Leo's tiny clothes with the same affection as always. William watched and felt a growing admiration for that young woman who had sacrificed everything for a child who wasn't even biologically hers. There was something about her dedication that touched a part of his heart that had been closed for a long time. Evenings were the most special part of their new routine. After Leo nursed and fell asleep, Eliza and William would sit in the living room and talk about their day, about plans for the baby, about life in general. "Did you always want to have children?" she asked in one of these conversations, curious to get to know the man she had married better. "Always, especially after I lost my mother. I wanted to build the family I didn't have the chance to complete," he replied. "And you? Did you always dream of being a mother?" William asked back. "Yes, but I imagined it would be different, that I would fall in love, date, get married in church, get pregnant. The whole package," Eliza said with a sad little smile. "But when I found Leo, I discovered that being a mother has nothing to do with how the child comes to you. It has to do with the love you feel for him." As the weeks passed, William began to show a more sensitive and affectionate side. He would come home from work, and the first thing he would do was look for Leo and Eliza. "Where's my prince?" he would say, picking Leo up and covering his face with kisses. The baby always smiled when he saw his father, and it was beautiful to see the connection between the two growing day by day. "He's starting to recognize you," Eliza commented one afternoon, seeing Leo stretch his little arms towards William as soon as he arrived. "I lost so much time in his life," William said sadly. 3 months may seem short, but in a baby's life, it's an eternity." Eliza saw the pain in his eyes and felt like comforting him. "You didn't lose him because of your fault. The important thing is that now you're here, present in his life," she said, lightly touching his arm. It was the first time she had voluntarily touched him, and both felt a different spark in that contact. William looked at her with an intensity that made Eliza's heart race, and for a moment it seemed that they were going to kiss. But Eliza quickly pulled away, embarrassed by her own reaction. I need to prepare Leo's bath," she said, almost running out of the room. William stood there, feeling that something had changed between them, but respecting the space she needed. Meals began to be eaten as a family, with Leo in the special high chair William had bought, and the three truly seemed like a real family. "He's growing so fast," Eliza would comment, seeing Leo try to grab the pieces of fruit she offered. "Soon he'll be crawling around and getting into everything," William would say, laughing when Leo purposely threw food on the floor. "William," Eliza said during one of these meals, Can I ask you a personal question?" He nodded, curious. "How was your marriage to Catherine? Were you happy?" The question caught him by surprise, but he decided to be honest. "No, I thought I was, but now I realize we never had a real connection. It was more of a partnership than a marriage." "And now? Do you miss having a real wife?" she asked, nervously fiddling with her napkin. William looked at her and at Leo, who was smiling, covered in baby food, and felt his heart clench. "I have a wife," he said simply. "It may not be in the traditional way, but you take care of me, of our home, of our son. You are my wife." That night, after putting Leo to sleep, they sat on the sofa to watch a movie, but ended up talking all night. William told her about the loneliness he felt in the mansion before they arrived, and Eliza spoke about how terrifying, yet wonderful, it was to suddenly have a family. When she started to get sleepy, she unconsciously leaned her head on his shoulder. And William didn't have the heart to wake her. He stayed there all night, with Eliza sleeping in his arms, thinking about how that pure and courageous young woman had completely changed his life in so little time. And for the first time since he met Catherine, William allowed himself to dream of the possibility of true love, of a real family, of the happiness that had always seemed unattainable for him. William and Eliza are clearly developing feelings beyond their convenience marriage. How do you think this newfound emotional connection will be tested? And what challenges do you foresee for their relationship as it evolves? Share your insights in the comments. The peace of the newly formed family was interrupted on a Sunday morning when the mansion's doorbell rang insistently at 8 o'clock. William went down to answer, imagining it was a delivery, but found his younger brother, Daniel, accompanied by his wife, Jessica, both with expressions of people who had come to demand explanations. "We need to talk, William," Daniel said, without even properly greeting him, "about this farce you're putting on." "What farce?" William asked, already knowing the conversation wouldn't be pleasant. Daniel and Jessica entered the living room uninvited, looking around as if searching for evidence of a crime. "This story about marrying some random girl from the slums and giving her the family name?" Jessica said scornfully. "Everyone's talking about it, William. You're making our family a joke." Eliza was coming down the stairs with Leo in her arms when she heard the agitated voices coming from the living room. She stopped halfway down the stairs, holding Leo tighter, and listened to every poisonous word that came out of those people's mouths. "She is my wife and my son's mother," William said firmly, "and they deserve the same respect as you." "Your son's mother? William, for God's sake, wake up!" Daniel exclaimed. This girl appeared out of nowhere with Leo made up this story about finding him in the trash, and you believed her? She was probably involved with whoever abducted the child from the beginning. Daniel's words hit Eliza like a slap, making her heart pound with indignation. "You don't know what you're talking about," William said, starting to lose his patience. "Eliza saved Leo's life. If it weren't for her, I would never have found my son." Jessica gave a malicious chuckle and said, "Saved? Or kidnapped and then felt sorry?" "William, you're being deceived by a gold digger who saw a golden opportunity." Eliza couldn't stay silent any longer. She walked down the rest of the stairs and entered the living room, with Leo in her arms and her chin held high with dignity. "I may not be rich like you, but never in my life have I done anything dishonest," she said, looking directly at Jessica. "And if you want to know the truth about how I found Leo, I can tell you every detail." "Oh, how convenient. The gold digger decided to show up," Jessica said sarcastically. "Spare me this Cinderella story, dear. Everyone knows you hit the jackpot and grabbed this opportunity with both hands." Leo began to cry in Eliza's arms, as if sensing the tension in the room, and she automatically began to rock him to calm him down. "Enough!" William shouted, stepping between his family and Eliza. "You came into my house to disrespect my wife and scare my son. I will not tolerate this." Daniel looked at his brother with disappointment and said, "William, you're blind. This woman has bewitched you somehow, but everyone can see she's an opportunist." "The only thing you can see is prejudice," Eliza said, finding courage she didn't know she had. "You look at me and only see a poor girl who doesn't deserve to be here. But I love Leo more than any of you will ever love anyone in life." Her words came out with such sincerity that even Jessica was left speechless for a moment. "Love? What kind of love appears overnight?" Daniel insisted. "You want us to believe a stranger found a baby and suddenly became an exemplary mother? That doesn't exist, William. There's something wrong with this story." Leo had stopped crying and was looking at his uncle with a serious expression, as if he also didn't like that man. "I'll prove it to you," Eliza said, handing Leo to William and leaving the room. She returned a few minutes later with a folder where she kept all the documents related to Leo. Photos from when she found him on the first day, prescriptions for medicines she had bought, receipts for diapers and clothes, even the medical report from when she finally managed to take him to a health clinic. "Look at these photos," she said, spreading the images on the coffee table. "This is Leo on the first day, almost dead from cold and malnutrition. These are the clothes he was wearing, dirty and wet. These are the receipts for everything I bought for him, selling my own belongings." The evidence was irrefutable, showing the terrible condition Leo was in and the dedicated care Eliza had given him. Jessica looked at the photos and for the first time seemed shaken. The images clearly showed a baby who had been abandoned to die and a young woman who had sacrificed everything to save him. This proves nothing," she said, but with less conviction than before. "Anyone can take photos and make up a story." "Make up?" Eliza asked, with tears of anger in her eyes. "Make up that I woke up in the middle of the night for 3 months taking care of him? Make up that I sold even my grandmother's ring to buy diapers? Make up that I managed to breastfeed him even though I was a virgin because my body reacted to the maternal love I felt?" Her voice was broken, but firm. William saw Eliza's despair and felt a fury he had never felt before. "You've said enough," he said, standing up and pointing to the door. "I want you out of my house now, and don't come back until you learn to respect my family." Daniel tried to protest, but William was adamant. "Get out now!" After Daniel and Jessica left, Eliza collapsed onto the sofa and began to cry uncontrollably. "They're right," she sobbed. "I shouldn't be here. I'm a poor girl who has no place in your world." William sat beside her and pulled her into a hug, with Leo still in his arms. "Don't say that. You have more place here than any of those people," he said, stroking her hair. "You saved my son, built a family with me, taught me what true love is." Eliza cried in his arms, feeling for the first time that she truly had someone to protect her. But the problems were just beginning. On Monday, William received a call that chilled his blood. "Mr. Thorne, it's Detective Miller. I have news you won't like. Your ex-wife is back. She's clean from drugs and wants custody of Leo back." The news came like a bolt from the blue. Catherine had spent 3 months in an expensive rehabilitation clinic. She had managed to break her addiction and now returned, claiming she had been a victim of a temporary psychotic crisis when she abandoned her son. "She hired the best lawyers in Los Angeles," Detective Miller explained, "and she's claiming she was coerced by drugs, that she wasn't responsible for her own actions." "This can't be happening," Eliza said, when William told her the situation. Leo was sleeping in his crib, oblivious to the drama unfolding around him. "She abandoned him to die. How can she want him back now?" William held her hands, trying to convey a confidence he didn't feel. "We're going to fight. We're going to prove that Leo is better off with us, that you are his true mother," William said. But deep down, he was terrified of the possibility of losing his son again. The battle to come would be the hardest of their lives, and the future of the family they had built depended on convincing a judge that love was stronger than biology. Eliza and William are about to face a legal battle against Leo's biological mother. What evidence do you think will be most crucial in proving Eliza's profound bond with Leo? How might William's influence help or hinder their case? Share your thoughts in the comments. The custody battle for Leo lasted 2 intense months, with tense hearings where every detail of Eliza's life was scrutinized by Catherine's lawyers. Catherine appeared in court completely transformed, in expensive clothes, with well-groomed hair, and a rehearsed speech about how she had overcome her addiction and was ready to be a mother. "I was sick, Your Honor," she would tell the judge with tears in her eyes. "Drugs made me do terrible things, but now I'm cured, and I want my son back." Eliza watched everything from the witness stand, holding Leo in her arms. He was now 6 months old, a joyful and healthy child who clearly recognized her as his mother. "She may be clean from drugs now," William's lawyer argued, but Leo spent the first days of his life with Eliza Reed, who saved him from certain death and has been his mother in every sense. "But I am the biological mother," Catherine countered, looking at Leo with an expression that seemed more like possessiveness than maternal love. "He is my blood child, and now that I am well, I can take care of him as he deserves." When she tried to approach Leo during one of the hearings, the baby began to cry desperately and only calmed down when he was back in Eliza's arms. The difference was striking, and it moved the entire courtroom. The decisive moment came when the judge called Eliza's neighbors to testify. Mrs. Henderson, the lady from the second floor who always helped with Leo, took the stand firmly. "Your Honor, I saw this girl take care of this baby like no mother I know. She woke up in the middle of the night, sang to him, never complained once. That baby was dying when she found him, and look at him now." Ms. Clara, who bought savory pastries from Eliza in the park, also testified. "Your Honor, this young woman sold everything she had to buy diapers for the baby. I saw her cry with joy when he gave his first smile. I saw her teach him to clap his hands. That's a real mother, not someone who throws her child in the trash." But it was the testimony of Dr. Evans, the pediatrician from the health clinic who monitored Leo, that changed everything. When Eliza first brought Leo in, he was malnourished and showed clear signs of abandonment. She didn't have money for a private consultation, but she did everything I advised. More importantly, she was breastfeeding the baby even though she was a virgin. This only happens in cases of extreme maternal love. "How is she breastfeeding as a virgin?" the judge asked, intrigued. "Your Honor, it's a rare but real phenomenon. When a woman has intense contact with a baby and develops a deep maternal love, the body can naturally produce milk. It is scientific proof of the emotional bond between her and the child," the doctor explained. Catherine was visibly shaken by this testimony. She knew she had never been able to breastfeed Leo in the few days she was with him. And now she discovered that a stranger had managed to do what she, the biological mother, could not. "That means nothing," she said nervously. "I was sick. I wasn't in a condition to breastfeed." The judge then asked to observe Leo's interaction with each of the women. When Catherine tried to hold him, Leo cried immediately and stretched his little arms towards Eliza. When he returned to Eliza's arms, he calmed down instantly and smiled, making the sweet sounds he always made when he was happy. The difference was stark and moved the entire courtroom. "There's something else I need to reveal," William said, asking to speak. "Eliza is the daughter of Mary Reed, who was my nanny during my childhood and practically raised me after I lost my mother. Mary taught me the values I have today, and I see those same values in her daughter. This is no coincidence. It's destiny." The judge was thoughtful for a few minutes, looking at Leo, who was happy in Eliza's arms, then at Catherine, who looked increasingly desperate. My decision is based on the best interest of the child, he said finally. Although Catherine is the biological mother, it is evident that Leo recognizes Eliza as his mother, and that it was she who ensured his survival and healthy development. Custody is granted to William Thorne and Eliza Reed, the judge announced. Catherine will have the right to supervised visits, but Leo will remain with the family who raised him and where he clearly feels safe and loved. Eliza began to cry with relief, kissing Leo, who giggled, amused by his mother's tears. Catherine tried to appeal, but her own lawyers advised her to accept the decision. She left the courtroom in tears, finally understanding that she had forever lost the right to be Leo's mother when she chose to abandon him to die. "He was my son," she murmured to William on the way out. "He is your son," William replied firmly, "but now he has a real mother." That night at home, after putting Leo to sleep in the crib that was now officially his forever, William and Eliza sat on the living room sofa. "I can't believe it's over," she said, still processing the victory. "Leo really is ours now." William looked at her and felt his heart overflow with love for that courageous woman who had fought for their son. "Eliza," he said, taking her hands in his, "I need to tell you something. This marriage started out of convenience, but you've become much more than a partnership to me. You've become the woman of my life." Eliza felt her heart race because she felt the same way, but was afraid to admit it. "I love you too, William," she whispered, looking into his eyes. "I don't know when it happened, but at some point you stopped being just Leo's father and became the man I want by my side forever." They kissed for the first time, a sweet kiss full of promises for the future. "Do you want to renew our vows? Get married for real? This time for love?" William asked, caressing her face. "In church, with a white dress, just as you always dreamed." Eliza smiled with tears in her eyes and nodded. "I want to marry you every day, if I have to." 6 months later, in the same church where Eliza used to pray alone when she was single, she walked down the aisle in a wedding dress, carrying Leo in her arms. The boy was in a small suit and bow tie, smiling at all the guests, as if he knew that was a special day. When Father Michael asked if she accepted William to be her husband, she looked at the man who had become her companion and best friend, and replied, "I do, with all the love in the world." Leo grew up in a family full of love, never knowing that he had once been abandoned, knowing only the affection of two parents who loved him unconditionally. And when he turned 2, he gained a little sister that Eliza and William made together, completing the family that God had planned for them from the beginning. The orphaned girl who found a baby in the rain had also found her own happy ending. And so ends the story of Eliza and Leo, a story that teaches us that true love is not about blood or money, but about devotion, sacrifice, and dedication. Eliza discovered that being a mother doesn't depend on having given birth to a child, but on loving a child that God placed in her arms without limits. And William learned that happiness is not in the riches we accumulate, but in the special people we choose to share our lives with. Sometimes God allows us to go through storms to prepare us for the miracles He has reserved for us. The rain that brought Leo into Eliza's life was actually a blessing in disguise, and the love that bloomed between the 3 of them became the foundation of a family blessed by God. If this story touched your heart, please like it below, subscribe to Echoes of Tomorrow, and hit the bell so you don't miss any of our stories. Tell me in the comments, what was the most emotional moment for you in this story? I'm curious to know which part touched your heart the most. And don't forget to share this story with someone who needs to believe in the power of true love. May God bless you and your family, and may you always have faith that the best days are yet to come. See you in the next story.